Hey everyone, welcome to the Power to Change show with Robert Timmons. And today I have a special guest. My guest today brings a wealth of more than 35 years of experience in coaching, consulting, and public speaking. She has been a teacher, a co-owner of a travel agency, an executive coach, thought leader on advisory boards, a dream architect, and a cancer survivor. Please welcome Susan Markham to the show. How you doing, Susan?
Great, Robert. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here today and to really learn about all this journey that you've been on. I've been, reading up on you, and I find it very fascinating. All the things you've done, 35 years, that's incredible in itself. A lot
Yeah,
of people are right at the beginning,
yeah.
and they keep forgetting to start. I really find that a lot. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a really great point, and I agree completely. I think people feel, especially with what's going on in the world today, they feel very uncertain. They feel the ground is shaking beneath them, and they don't know where to stand.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, helping people, given today's circumstances, but in life in general, to find that direction, that calling, that purpose that will fulfill people beyond a paycheck, beyond feeling useful, but really feeling useful in a way that transcends and transforms their experiences while they're alive.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think we're definitely in unique times. It can be a great moment of resetting
Yes.
one's life and reflecting, and especially if you lost your job. Sadly, I understand the complications of that, but it
Yeah.
also allows you to say, where do I want to go now? And start growing from that point and start really taking control, because you may have wanted to leave that job, but you felt that you needed that money, for an example.
Exactly.
And now that it's maybe gone, if this is one of the listeners' case, now you have that opportunity to own the direction that you want to go and
Yeah.
not just fall back into the same pattern. Now, I have a few questions here for you, and I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about them. Let's go with number one here. Let's go back into your school teacher day. This is like way before,
Way
I'm sure,
back.
where you are now. I'm
Many
not sure how
chapters
far
ago.
back in your 35-year journey, but it sounds like, you wouldn't go from coaching back to teacher. I think coaching is kind of like teaching. And
Yes.
to me, it's like almost an evolution of where you can go from teaching.
Yeah.
Um, how long were you a teacher, and what did you imagine? Because as an artist, I'm all about visualization.
Yeah.
What did you imagine and take action on that started you on the path into coaching and consulting?
And another great question. So I was a teacher right out of college. I believed at the time that you couldn't teach anybody anything. You can't force information into people's minds and then predict which direction they're going to move with that information in. So I believe that the teacher's job, primary job, is to inspire people to want to learn, to
Nice.
develop a love for learning because of what it represents. It's not the learning in and of itself or the grades or so needless to say, it was a little radical at the time, 35 or a little over 35 years ago. I was going to take on single-handedly transforming the world of education. And I thought I'll start at kindergarten and first grade when they're brand new to the experience. And I didn't want to teach Montessori because that was for the privileged. I wanted to bring this to inner city schools. And after about 2 days of designing classrooms where kids could express themselves, one child hated math, so I had him draw. He was extremely talented in artistry. And I had him draw the problems, draw 3 toys and draw 4 of your friends. How many things did you draw? And he would get the answer right every time. But he didn't like working with math. The principal came in, saw that, put the kibosh on it very quickly,
Oh,
and
wow.
said, this is all about discipline. There's really no place for you in the public school system if this is going to be the approach you'll take. So I thought, all right, it's not going to, my vehicle won't be through kindergarten and elementary school teachers. What will my vehicle be? And then life pulled me in a direction of co-owning a travel agency and then working my way through to being a formal coach, educational instructor, personal growth and development, and visualization and motivational, ideal life planning, life designing.
Well, that's fabulous. When we go back to the school system, I do believe that the school system has not manifested into anything new. It hasn't evolved. It hasn't changed. And, if you think about history, it was created by, big business in the sense that they wanted a certain type of person to almost like fill their dreams.
Exactly.
Right. And now we're at that point where the internet's been so incredible and allowed so many people to put out their thoughts and imagination and that there's people teaching, there's mentors, there's coaches, there's consultants that are doing things that you wouldn't have thought about before.
Right.
And no one's telling them that's wrong. Like you say, a principal came in and told you what you're doing is wrong. I'm very shocked, but I'm not shocked at the same time due to the fact that I went through that school system. I kind of know that some of them aren't there really to inspire.
Yeah.
They're there to say, oh, this is where the money is. You should go there, with no passion, no want, no direction. And I felt I was disserviced in a lot of ways when I went through school. However, I also felt that you had to have it in order to get anywhere, which I'm learning now that you really don't.
Yeah.
Not saying that it's not good for you. It's definitely good to read and learn and write and do math. You definitely want the basic skills, but to really go anywhere further in life, you don't necessarily need that college and university, which I'm learning is big business now too. And I came out of there in debt, $50,000 in debt.
Yeah.
And it took me over 10 years, bad credit, struggling just to pay that off. So I definitely understand the school system. I think it's great that, you went in to really to inspire and transform, especially at that young age. That is like the age, what do they say, up to 7 years old is where that brain is there forever. That's your main frame.
Exactly.
That's fabulous.
It's critical. Yeah.
So we'll go on to number 2 here. Have you had any challenges you have overcome within that journey from teacher to coach to speaker that you can remember and maybe help anybody who's on that journey?
Yeah, that's really struck me when I read that question. The challenges that I faced mostly were realizing that while we live in a diverse world and all of the conditions in which we live may vary from socioeconomic to religious to geographical, where we live, all of those things that could separate us don't really. There's more of a human thread that binds us. I've consulted all over the world, in Asia, in Egypt, in Europe, in South America, and the same issues exist for people everywhere in the world because they're human issues. So the biggest challenge that I had was, how do I really tap into the most critical human issues and address those, and not, as you said, the ones about catching up on your debt, getting the job that will allow you to pay off bills and have a family and live where you want to live. All of that's great, and all of that is part of what we aspire towards, but it's not the kernel, the essence of life. I think people were put on this earth to really make a difference. And as time goes on, we get further and further away from that. And we start to gear all of our decisions on survival of monetary, physical survival, financial, any kind of survival, just looking good. just how do we come across to other people? You want to make sure you have the best image. So when I do a talk, I realize that in that room of 200, 500 people, there are that many unique situations sitting in those seats. And yet, how do I weave that common thread that's going to have everyone congeal around what's most important in this life, making a difference, leaving a legacy that's worthwhile, knowing that your life mattered, no matter what your accomplishment, knowing in your heart that your life truly mattered and you lived the life that was designed for you because you designed it. So that's been the
Absolutely.
biggest challenge.
No, absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Um, as someone who understands and advocates for people to express their uniqueness, first
Yes.
off, and like you said, every story is different, right? And that's when people bring those forward, not only helps them, but it can help someone else, right?
Exactly.
Someone else that they've, like, when people are stuck in the problems and the challenges and the stresses, they don't realize that someone else has been there and someone else is going there. And they're in that transition of moving forward, hopefully,
Yeah.
that cloud will be gone. The
Yeah.
sun will shine again, and they will say, I won against that
Yeah.
moment. And that moment, that story, that uniqueness that they just went and were challenged with for a reason, there's something that they had to learn there. But
Exactly.
now they can express that to help someone else through it.
Yeah.
They become a teacher, a coach, or whatever it is in that case. Maybe not even with the title, just be a good person
Yeah.
and bring out that value to help someone. And when you do that, and I'm sure you've done that a lot in your 35 years, which is just fabulous. It's so good. It
Yeah.
feels great.
Yeah. To
And I
see that
really,
spark go off in their eyes.
absolutely. And even in your own, like you go,
Yeah.
oh my God. Like, and like you said, you can't predict what the person will do, like you said earlier, with the information you give them. So when you do see them manifest into something because of the information you shared,
Mm.
the walls that you knocked down, the mountains you allowed them to climb, it's so exciting that you were a part of that journey, and you're like, oh my God, I wouldn't even have thought that. And that's what I love about the universe and what you do. It's
Yeah.
nature, right? You don't know how nature's going to go, but you need to keep moving and you need to keep, you find your opportunities, you find your people, you find your
Yeah.
mentors, you find things that help you through.
And it's
Excellent,
funny.
excellent.
Yeah, you said one thing that really struck a chord with me. You said a lot that struck a chord with me, but the one mantra I kind of developed over the years is everybody's dealing with something. I had just lost my husband, my first husband, and I was in a supermarket, and the person in front of me was quibbling about 4 cents that they felt they didn't get back in their change. And it was the day after the funeral, and I was raw and I was hurt and angry at all of those emotions. And I just wanted to scream, don't you know what I've just been through? And you're going to quibble about 4 cents? Here, take the nickel. And I stopped myself. And it was probably one of my aha moments, glorified into something that altered my life. I thought, I have no idea what he's dealing with,
Right.
none whatsoever. So, how can I, from my point of view, impose on him how he should think, feel, act, etc.? So, the word compassion is being used more and more in leadership, empathy.
Mm.
There's so many good signs that the tide is turning towards just what you said, people really experiencing that pathway for themselves. And I feel that my purpose, your purpose as inspirational leaders, motivational coaches, consultants, is to help people get on that track, get on that path for themselves.
Absolutely. And to add to that, you talk about emotions. you
Yeah.
know it's our emotions that we can hold back, hide, express. And in that moment, you didn't allow those frustrated emotions come out. You didn't change your attitude, um, that you could have, but you made that choice not to. And I really wanted to express that because that's the power of change right there.
Yes.
You're taking acknowledgement of how you felt and how it could affect someone if you express it in that manner. Instead, you changed it, reframed it, and expressed it in such a manner that was good to you and to the person.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's fabulous. I appreciate that. All right. So number 3 was, let's talk about this amazing dream builder style coaching you have and these major quadrants of life. If you can explain kind of a bit about that, I'm really excited to
Sure.
learn.
Yeah, thank you. So I've been certified in this particular mode of coaching. I have a lot of different modalities and methodologies under my belt. This is the one that I'm most excited about currently. Not only because it seems to be the evolution of all of the predecessors, the previous types of coaching, it perfectly synchronizes with all of them, and it's absolutely appropriate for what's going on in the world today. You mentioned earlier, some people have lost their jobs, so they're at a very basic level looking at, what am I going to do with my life? What if my industry has been obliterated? There are certain industries that I don't think are going to come back, and they're definitely not going to come back the way we knew them.
Right.
They'll either be virtual or digital. So really having people take a look at, what is my future? I ask people when I'm coaching them, when do you get to the future? And people just kind of stop in their tracks. And every one of them, I can see the light go off inside, and they say, you don't. I said, exactly. The minute you get to the future, it's now.
Mhm.
And then the minute you realize it's now, it's in the past. So capturing now is the most important, critical part of it. So how do we capture it? I've developed and I've learned this process to look at life through 4 paradigms, 4 quadrants of the main categories, the main areas of life. So one is your health and well-being, and this includes physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, every bit of health and well-being. Another quadrant is your love and relationships. It can be with very primary relationships or just your relationship with the world. When you go out to the market, are you isolated, insulated, where you don't talk to strangers, you don't say anything, you do your shopping and you come home? Or do you engage with people, knowing that your interaction might have been the highlight of their day?
Right.
The third quadrant is your vocation, and that's the one that's in question for people now. But it could be, what vocation? Am I in one that I love? Am I making a difference? Am I productive and high performing? So I also work on leadership development, personal productivity, etc., if that's the person's primary goal. And then the fourth one is the one that really, really grabbed my attention: time and money freedom. So I was working up until December of last year in a consulting firm, mid-sized consulting firm. About 15 years I was there, and I was on the road about 3 weeks out of every month. I loved what I did. When I would be with clients, the world would disappear. You get in the zone, as athletes will say. And I just loved it. But I would come home Friday night at 9 o'clock, say hi to my husband, hi to my dog. I'd have Saturday to catch up. Sunday morning, typically, I was on a flight out again. And I thought, if not, I woke up one morning and the phrase that came to mind was, if not now, when? And I thought, what's that relating to? What's the message here? And I just realized, okay, I'm making great 6-figure salary. I'm living the life, staying in great hotels, traveling all over the world. And when am I going to live my life, my purpose?
Right.
So that got me on this path. One of the things that I do is I start by interviewing people, and I ask some very evocative questions. My style of coaching is evocative, meaning that my desire is to extract from you whatever is top of mind, top of heart. I want to hear what matters to you. And then I start to design, custom design, based on the future vision that you create. We talked a bit about visualization. If everything happens twice, first in the thought of it, and then in the manifestation of it. So Martin Luther King, I have a dream. He spoke his thought, his dream, his vision, and then started to try to implement ways that that dream would become real. John F. Kennedy, going to put a man on the moon first of all the countries in the world. They didn't even have the alloys for the spacecraft when he said that. But his dream was big and bold enough that he could envision it. Now, with dreams, they come and they go. The minute you start to hone in on them, what shows up are your limiting beliefs. I can't do that. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I tried that when I was a kid and it failed. Those decisions that you made as a child don't remain back there in your childhood. You carry them with you. And every time you're presented with a situation that reminds you, remember the last time you did this, you put the brakes on and you dismiss it. So my initial step after the interview to find out what's really important in these quadrants, we pick a quadrant, the one that rises to the top, and I help them to design the dream in the most minute detail. And a way to start, and I'll give everybody a tip now, is with a journal. And I call it the front of the book, the back of the book journal. The front of the book is everything that you would want. Let's say it's vocation. You're out of work. Everything you would want in an ideal job. It can be as crazy, as far-fetched, as improbable as you can imagine. There's no holds barred. It could mean working 10 hours a week and making $200,000 a year. Whatever you come up with. The back of the book, sometimes it's hard to start with what you want. The back of the book is usually the easier place to start, and it's what you don't want or you won't tolerate. So in my last job, I love traveling, but what I don't want to tolerate anymore is being on the road 3 weeks out of a month. So I started to pick up more and more things of what I don't want. So what cleared the way then was to emerge was what I do want. My dream, my vision. And I made it as specific as I could. My office, this is what my office will look like. This is when I'm going to travel. This is exactly how many hours I'm going to work. This is what my house looks like when I walk in the door. And it was completely alien to my current reality. But as I built this dream, this blueprint for a dream, I started to see, maybe there are some actions I could take now. So the next step is building the bridge back to the present time and then creating a tactical, strategic plan. What's an action I can take today, this week, this month, that's going to move me closer to the dream? So I left my company in December with nothing more than a dream. That's all I had. And I've been working and developing, and then of course the pandemic hit, so it had me revise the way in which I deliver my work. Yet nonetheless, one of the things that people have found is that once they use this methodology in one area, they can't wait to apply it to the other 3 areas because they realize, I thought my relationships were fine. I thought my health and well-being was good. Now they start to see there's even a
raising
bigger
the standards in everywhere. As soon as you
Exactly.
start raising the standards one spot, you realize that it's part of everything. You need everything raised up in order to keep moving forward.
Exactly.
Creating a nice balanced foundation, in other words, right?
Yes. Yes.
I love what you're doing. I definitely, as an artist, I'm going to keep coming back to that because it's kind of how I think and how I move and
Yes.
how I create and how I keep, manifesting my own dreams. Um, Visualization is definitely one of my directions. And um, I love, sorry, got little things out of the way there. Where you're talking about reverse engineering,
Mm,
right? You're seeing
in a way.
the end in mind,
Yeah.
and as an artist, I need to do that
Yeah.
or I don't paint,
Yeah.
right? I need to see where it's going, where, what am I doing right now? And honestly, when I get something that really triggers me, I can see, I don't know how far it goes, how many years it goes or what, but I can see an end. I can
Yeah.
see, a stage, a ladder, steps. I can see it growing into something massive. And there was a time where I mentioned something to a girl I was dating years ago. And I told her, I'm like, oh my God, I felt this and this. And she just looked at me and goes, how could you do that? And instantly it popped my bubble.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of our listeners and some people out there, they don't
Yeah.
realize, not to take on what someone else says.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can bounce it around if you want, but that's all you want to do. Is
Yeah.
it good information? Is it bad information? Is it just how they see things in life? Take on what you want and reinforce maybe your own strength there at that moment, because that's going to show you that you're getting better. You're taking
That's
control.
yeah. It's so perfect. Someone I was listening the other night to an interview online, and someone was talking about how do I take the pandemic, this was when the peaceful protests were becoming a little bit violent and destructive. And they said, how do I take this and turn it into something good?
Hmm.
And I believe, and it sounds like you believe, that there is gold and there is a silver lining in every cloud. And our job is to peel away what's not true. That's what I true people up to. Excuse the pun, but I true people up to what's true. And that's exactly what you're pointing to. Someone can have an opinion, have a perspective. I actually listen to them, even if they're hurtful initially. And
Mm.
I think, what is it like for them such that they would have that perspective?
Right.
And it alters all of my pain, my anguish, my embarrassment. And I start to look at the world literally through their eyes. If I sit across the table from someone and we have opposing points of view, and our goal is to find a common ground, that person will take a step forward, I take a step forward, and we meet in the middle, and we call it compromise or agreeing to disagree. But nonetheless, Robert, your right shoulder is my left, and my right shoulder is your left. So no matter what, we're still seeing the world from an opposite perspective. If you come around and sit next to me and we look out at the world together and I can see the way you see the world, whether I agree or not, now suddenly there's no opposition. There's contribution, you can take it or leave it, but all it is, it's another perspective.
Yeah,
And all the charge goes out of it.
it kind of brings me up as an artist again. The way I see blue, you may not see blue.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And
Exactly.
accepting that is such a thrill in itself,
Yes.
to say how I see something, I could learn how someone else sees something,
Yeah.
good or bad.
Yeah.
And like you've also stated, stepping into someone else's shoes is so powerful in itself for your own learning.
Yeah.
that and how
Exactly.
you can relate to someone and maybe diffuse the problem or the energy within them. I used to do a lot of protesting. My
Hmm.
art has created such a pathway for me that's why I started doing these kind of paintings, painting millionaires, because I'm creating a new path. I used to paint ocean animals and their voices, through my paintings, which created me on a massive path around the world that I was, rubbing elbows with leaders in the conservation world. And I had always wanted to travel. And next thing you know, I'm in Japan, I'm in Australia, I'm all over the United States. I met my wife, who has now moved me into the States. So I've changed countries all because of my art. And now
Wow.
that I look back, it was due to the fact of visualization and manifesting without realizing it. And people need to know, if you're controlling it or not controlling it, it's happening.
Yes,
And
exactly.
to get into a point that you're talking about, in talking with others, when I was protesting, we protested about animals,
Mm,
and the consumption of animals and that. I became vegetarian and vegan because of my
me
art,
too. Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
how I painted and the stories I was seeing, that brought me to put action into finding people that were similar. And it was such an amazing learning curve for me. And I learned quite a bit and built a lot of skills due to that fact.
Mm,
But I remember speaking to someone who was a chef, and he was angry, like seriously angry. And there was people that were being angry back. And what I
mm.
learned there was, you can't fight fire with fire. You really can't. And I learned how to persuade, how to go into their shoes. How can I speak to this person? What angle? And I didn't even know I was doing this stuff. Now that I look back at it, I was learning these skills very fast.
Yeah.
Because when you have someone angry in front of you, you don't know what, the reaction is going to be, and you're face to
Right.
face. But I found a way to not talk about the animal, but to talk about how the government puts things into the animal that you feed to your children. And when I
Mm.
reframed that for that chef, he totally changed his view on what I was saying. He totally came into my level. And at the end, he thanked me for talking to him. And I learned so much from that conversation
Yeah.
that I was able to start, building on that practice,
Mm.
and without knowing it. Like, that's the amazing part about this. I
That's
was being put in these positions to learn, and I
yes.
learned a lot.
Well, great leaders, I believe, focus on being interested, not interesting. So I don't want to dazzle people with what I know and what I've experienced and all of my, life lessons. Yes, they may be valuable, and when the time is right or there's an interest for that, I'll provide it. But my intention is not to dazzle people and
Right,
be the most interesting person in the room.
right,
Um, I've been playing around with this theory. Everybody talks about intention and having good intention, and you do something, it doesn't turn out well. You say, "Well, I didn't intend that to go that way. That's your problem." And kind of, wipe their hands of responsibility and accountability. And I'm not going to even go into that topic because that's
mhm.
another 45 minutes. But it allows people to get off the hook. And so I've been more interested in impact. Yes, it's important, it's critical to create intention. What is the intention? What is the outcome that I want to produce? And anchor myself to that and keep looking, is this action fulfilling on that intention? And without checking in on the impact of my words, my actions, my deeds, my thoughts, if I don't check in about how it's landing over there, then
Mhm.
it's all about me. And I'm just shining the spotlight back on me and
Right.
my lofty intention. And I think the world needs to move, and us as one person at a time needs to move towards, what is the impact that my life is having on those around me and those I interact with. And that's exactly what you did in that situation. You became interested, you shared something that then had him be interested,
Right.
and the impact was profound.
It was.
Yeah.
I was pretty happy about that. But I also learned how everyone around me was acting towards this, and but yet their objective was to get their information out.
Yeah.
But I realized I grew up with a lot of anger and when I was in my younger years, and that anger doesn't allow you to think
Yeah.
properly. It doesn't allow you to express in a way that someone wants to listen. Because
Yeah.
who wants to be around an angry person, you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
So, yeah, it was very, very enlightening, and it was something that definitely stuck to me. And still, as I'm talking to you about that moment now, I can tell that I've taken that emotion and stored that positive, day, that moment. Let's go into. We'd love to know your thoughts more on visualization and how it helps others in your mind.
Great. Great. Okay. So I believe that the universe, as diverse as it is always waiting to give you what you want. Now, that can sound a little bit woo-woo to people. Everybody's heard, I think, by now of the law of attraction. There's also the law of vibration, the law of manifestation, the law of abundance. There are many laws that aren't talked about as much as the law of attraction. But the universe is not this random happenstance. Let's just throw some planets together and we'll see what happens. There is a design, cause and effect, whatever you want to name it or call it. There are laws and rules that govern the existence. One of them is the frequency that we operate at. You mentioned anger. When you're operating in anger, your heart rate's faster. Everything is elevated, and the literal vibration or frequency, you're trembling. You can feel that you're in a different kind of vibration than when you're being with the one you love, walking down a beach, whatever your panacea is. You know that your kids, your parents are just happy and loving, and you had something to do with that. The vibrations will attract like vibrations. It's a scientific law. There's neuroscience and there's a lot of other studies behind this that back it up, and I'm not a neuroscientist, so I won't go into detail. When you can visualize, you're actually telling the universe, this is the world that I'm painting, that I'm creating, that I want to live in. And the more detailed, the more specific you can be, the more likely it is that that fulfillment will occur. The impact of what you've created, what you visualize will occur. May look a little different, but nonetheless,
that's the exciting part.
Image. What's that?
I said, that's the exciting part.
Exactly. Now, they've interviewed famous athletes who, let's say a football player who threw a Hail Mary pass and there was nobody downfield. And they interview him and they say, how did you know that so-and-so was going to catch that? And he said, I envisioned it.
Right.
I envisioned a hole in one. You're actually creating the path and the vibration at which your actions will travel, on which your actions will travel. So I know when I visualized, this is a funny story. After my first husband died, a very dear friend of mine said to me, so what do you want in a relationship now? And I said, I don't have any idea. He was relationship. That's how I defined relationship. We'd grow old together and that would be it. He said, well, now you have the chance to design it and visualize it. And I started with the front of the book, the back of the book. And I started putting things like doesn't wear polyester. And, I was radical. We'll march in a protest march against vivisection for animals and all these crazy little nuances. And then I met my current husband and I went down, I pulled out my journal, check, 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 check. I think all but 2 items were there. I think I said tall, dark, and handsome. And he's average height and blonde and So but that's what I mean. It'll look different, but in the grand scheme of things, my picture got painted.
Right.
And then I got to live it, make adjustments, continue to visualize. Okay, that's how it is now. Where do we go from here?
Mhm.
And visualization will guide my actions. So you're nodding like this is in agreement.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I love visualization. I love the more I've been working on my personal development for like 5 years now. Um, After I moved from Canada over to the United States, my objective was to start an online business. And that's when I started realizing, wow, there's more than just starting a business.
Yeah.
You have to become a different person.
Mm.
So I started listening to Jim Rohn. I started listening to all these, inspirational speakers. And even to this day, and now I'm painting them because I'm so engulfed in them that I'm like, you know what? These people provide value to me. And I honor that by painting them. And I've given it to 4 of the millionaires own them.
Wow.
So I have 4 millionaires that own my paintings now because
Oh,
I've given it to them as a gift. And I've gotten into some of their programs. So like it's creating a whole new thing. I just joined up. Jesse Itzler was my third painting.
yes.
You
Yes,
know,
I love Jesse Itzler.
yeah. Well, I painted him. I talked to him because he's easy to DM on Instagram. He gave me an address where to send the painting. I
Wow.
joined his Build Your Life resume
Yeah.
because I seen him speak in Vegas, and I wanted to learn more about that part. And now I just joined his new one that's called the Big Ass Calendar Club, and it's a 12-month program. They have accountability coaches and stuff, and this is what I'm documenting because I'm doing this one on purpose.
Yes.
Right? My ocean was because I watched a documentary about sharks being killed called Shark Water, and
Mm.
it changed my whole life. Like I totally like became passionate. I became a public speaker because I was forced into it. I became a guy with a bullhorn. I started leading. I started building a
Mm.
team for Sea Shepherd, which was an
Mm.
organization I helped,
Mm.
and I started giving my prints all around the world and paintings for free.
Wow.
And it provided me such value that I'm like, let's see where this one goes. Let's plan this one out. Let's say, let's do this. I'm trying to always find how can I incorporate everything that I do in life so I'm not spread out too thin, because I
Yes.
understand spreading out, I get less energy in places,
Yes.
right? So that's why I started. I love painting. So I want, how can I bring painting into my world of learning and personal development? Well, that's
Yeah.
why I started painting this. So now people are like, why are you painting millionaires? What's this all about? But you know what's funny is when I started to learn about the sharks and other animals, everybody's like, what do you become? Some conservationist, some Greenpeace activist or something? And that's when I know I'm on the right path. When
Right.
people start questioning, I'm
Yeah.
changing first off.
Yes.
And I'm changing
Yes.
towards the direction that I want to change to because I don't know where it's going, but I know it's good. And now I'm starting, I've created a manifesto, I'm creating my own blueprint, and I listen and read that daily. And I'm
Mm.
starting to see that come into, a tree of fruit. In other words, it's filled with things.
It's great.
And like this show that I'm doing right now is all part of this manifesto.
Yeah.
And now meeting you and interacting with you, I find that all so exhilarating to see how this path is going. How's the universe bringing my thoughts into
Yeah.
fruition?
Yeah.
Because you don't know, like you said earlier, you don't know what it's going to look like,
Yeah.
but you'll know when you're there, in a sense,
Exactly.
because it feels like you've already been there because you've done it in your mind. And that's the visualization part about it.
It's so perfect. With all that's been going on this week with the protests and how it kind of went on a roller coaster path. Started out peaceful, got a little out of hand, then came back very quickly to a peaceful place and has pretty much stayed there. No destruction, no looting, no rioting. And I don't know that little old me had anything to do with it, but I did a lot of visualization while the rioting was going on.
Right.
And I pictured exactly what it would look like with thousands and thousands of people, arm in arm, hugging each other, all races, and I have to believe that I'm not the only one who sat there visualizing this.
Mm-hmm.
That whether people consciously or unconsciously were picturing or asking the what if question. What if
Mm-hmm.
is my favorite. What if and so what? The what if expands the picture, and the so what starts to get rid of the limiting beliefs and the kind of myths that we've grown up with, the urban legends.
Right.
Yeah, but then I won't make enough money. So what would happen then? Well, then, my family won't have enough to eat. And so what would be possible if you were in that situation? So constantly provoking people to visualize a future that they're not currently aware of.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you can help someone in the visualization stage, like it's
Mm.
it's almost like mini meditation, really,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I've taken on meditation the last 3-4 months every day, and if I
Mm.
miss a day, I am upset, like
Yeah.
seriously, because
Yeah.
I enjoy it. It when you can feel the vibrations going through you, your hair standing up, you've tapped into the place you want to be, the emotion that you want, or that you see that you're a part of, and that's what they say when you're living that visualization that you're having, you know, you're becoming familiar with it.
Exactly.
And because you're becoming familiar with it, your mind, like we talked about earlier, starts to reverse engineer that and
Yeah.
starts bringing you opportunities.
Yeah.
When stuff was happening with me with the conservation and that, and people would ask me, like, how are you doing all this? Like, I was doing 4 events in a week, raising
Mm.
money, doing a protest, doing a documentary showing. I was going crazy. Like in 4 years, I did over 70 events myself, but also supported other people doing theirs. And I was filming, I was, posting it. I was just loving it, because when you find that your passion, there's no energy like it. There's like, you don't even think. You just clear
Exactly.
vision, and you're just, this is what I'm doing. This is all I'm doing. And you don't think, you know what, I'm tired today, I'm not going to go. I was working night shifts, and I would have 4 hours sleep just to get up. I'd set my alarm just to go and be a part of a protest that I believed in,
Yeah.
right? Just to be there and support. But I really, I'm really loving this interview.
Me
I'll tell
too.
you, it's been fabulous talking to you. Now, how long have you been doing inspirational speaking, and who is your main audience in that area?
So I've been doing various forms of inspirational speaking for about 20 years. My first audience, back in the beginning, I did a professional growth and development, and it was people, anyone over the age of 18 could
Oh, wow.
join. So 18 to 80-year-olds, any kind of diverse background, employed, unemployed, C-suites, frontline worker. And it was all about what I said earlier, that human connection, that human thread, identifying what people long for and what they're discontented with, which is a good place to start when you're building a vision. What do I wish and hope and pray for, even though I don't think it's possible? That's longing. And then what am I discontented with? It really isn't okay that I'm on the road three weeks out of the month. So focusing on that probably was about 20 years ago. And
Mm.
I led to groups that were advertised in local community centers, in local neighborhood community groups, organizations that were looking for people to just talk to their employees, all functional levels, top to bottom, side to side. And then I did, with my formal consulting, I did a lot of inspirational speaking at companies, did a lot of work with healthcare, in particular physicians. And I fell in love with them. I
Mm.
got in their world, and I really looked at life through the eyes of being a caretaker. and being a clinician. And then I had the experience of my own to be a caretaker of my husband while he was dying,
Wow.
and at the same time deal with my own cancer.
Right.
So how do you take care of someone else? How do you make that choice? Who comes first, him or me?
Right.
And how do you not lose yourself and your health and well-being in the process? So I became a motivational speaker for caregivers
Oh, wow.
and that whole group, with physicians to refine their purpose, because many of them said, you know, I'm not even a doctor. I'm a pathologist. I look at people on slides. All I see are samples of their cells. And I call myself a doctor. And by the end of the speech, by the end of the talk, he just stood up and said, I've renewed my passion, my reason, my whole purpose. So
That's
something
awesome.
clicked, some light went off
Mhm.
in him. And that's my objective.
That's awesome. That's great. To hear your journey and your path to that was from struggles within your life,
Yeah.
challenges that you had, and like we talked about earlier, how you're bringing that out, and look at you touched one person, and touching one person is as amazing as touching 10, 100, 200, 10,000,
Yeah.
because you've changed someone's life and
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
helped them open up their mind.
Yeah.
And when we become aware of something, to me, it's like a new canvas,
Yeah.
right? It's like going through a hole into a cave and you're like, oh my God, this is a brand new cave. I've never been here before.
Yeah.
Now I
Yeah.
have to explore it. Now I have to, add things to it. Now I have to store more, great memories in it. That's how I see it, when you become aware of something. Like when I was younger, I thought I was open-minded, and then I became open-minded again and became open-minded again. I was like, wait a second, there's just a lot here.
Mm,
You don't know what you don't know, they say, right? And there's so
exactly.
much truth in that, and there's so much excitement in that. And that's why I think learning is something that we all need to do to the day we
Yeah.
die,
Yeah.
because I want to keep growing. And I could tell you are in the same path right there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
helping others grow and helping others, blossom those flowers within them, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Leaders want their biggest contribution is to create leaders that will surpass them.
Mm,
So I want people to run by me and leave me in their dust.
right. Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, this has been great. So what tips could you give our listeners today that can get them started on a better path in life? I'm sure we've given them a ton throughout this
Um,
conversation, but let's really think about something great so that we can give them some actionable steps as we.
okay. Good. Good. I'm all about that. So I would suggest that starting today for a certain period of time, it could be for 3 days, 3-day minimum, or a week, start a journal. It could be in your phone, it can be in your iPad, or it can be a physical journal. Front of the book, back of the book, and start to observe your life. Notice what you notice. Notice what you're noticing. So 3 people walk into a room, 3 people will notice 3 different aspects
Mhm.
first of that room. Some might notice the sofa, some might notice the art on the walls, some might notice the light that comes in from the windows. Just notice what you're noticing with no where to get to, no end objective. 3, front of the book, back of the book, what you love and what you don't love, what you long for, what you're discontented with, name it whatever you want. And then at the end of your designated period of time, start to paint a picture with everything that you don't want eliminated, everything you do want. And it can be a physical picture, whether they're stick figures or true paintings like you, or they can just be a written vision for what that would look like. And then from that vision, determine one action that you can take today that will move you closer to that vision.
Wow.
So it's all about taking actions, whether it's one a day, one an hour, one a month, You do what you can honestly commit to and honor. So that's one tip. The other tip is learn how to say things through questions. So my husband, I'll give a very quick story. My husband and I, my current husband, we'd be riding down the road and he'd say, you know, you make a left at this light. And I'd say, I know. And then we'd be driving along and he'd say, you know, at the fork in the road, don't forget, this is tricky. You want to make a right at the fork in the road. Yeah, I know. And he stopped me and he said, this is an observation, not a criticism. Do you notice how many times during the course of an hour you say, I know? And you say it so many different ways. You say, I know, real empathetic. I know, or just flip, I know. He said, but every time you say, I know, that tells me you can't contribute to her. She already knows.
Mm.
And it just set me back and I went, whoa, I had no idea what you talked about awareness. That was a complete blind spot for me. So I tried to not say it and I failed miserably. It would just fly out of my mouth. So I started saying thank you instead.
Nice.
So every time I would start to say, I know, I had to have a substitute because the void will cause everything that's familiar to come back rushing in.
That's right.
So I now say thank you. Thank you. I still say it in 20 different ways, but so that's another tip. Notice what you say that cuts people off. Innocent, good meaning, well-intentioned, but it's the impact. Look for the impact you're having and then do something to reverse it.
Absolutely. Oh, those are two fabulous, and I'm definitely going to be taking up on the journaling. I love writing. I have like probably 6 or 7 books on the go, and I just love writing down everything because you never know what comes to your mind. And I love the part of walking into a room and becoming conscious of what you're looking at, what's drawing you to that, and then maybe questioning that. Okay, why did I look at that first? What was the reason? What's it telling me? There could be some hidden things there. You never know, right? And because you said that, now I love being curious.
Yeah.
And when you become curious about your own actions, your own looks and what you're looking at, it makes life a game of fun and excitement. It really does. And discovery. There's a great word. I absolutely love that word. So how can the listeners find you on social medias if they want to, see what else you're doing?
Great. So LinkedIn is my professional site, Facebook, and I'm under Susan Markham. Very simple. I'm creating my Facebook business page, and I've gotten some pros and cons about which way to go with that. I hear you're pretty much an expert, so I might talk to you about that offline. And for now, those are the 2 best means of contacting me.
Excellent. Well, I truly want to thank you, Susan, for joining us today and providing massive value to our listeners.
Great.
Thank you for listening to the Power to Change show. Remember, you have massive power within you to create the life you dream about. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Painting Millionaires, and please subscribe to this podcast and anything else that you can. We are definitely happy to have you here, Susan, and I'm looking forward to anything you do in the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My honor.